Okay. Big breath. Let's talk about what just happened.
Welcome, goblins, ghosts, werewolves, and witches. You've just crossed over into a shadowy realm where darkness whispers, monsters lurk, and nothing is ever quite what it seems. From bone-chilling films to nightmare-fueled TV shows to heart-pounding video games, join us as we laugh, scream, and geek out over everything that goes bump in the night. So grab your garlic, wooden stakes, and silver bullets and get ready for this special edition of Scripts and Screams. Now your hosts, Jessica Morgan and Chris Carter.
Oh,
Pretty good, right?
New intro.
New intro.
I needed that because if anyone has seen this episode, holy crap, did I need something to bring me up again?
Yeah, I mean, Craig said it right at the top of it. He says, everybody, let's take a deep breath.
Okay,
Deep
right?
breath. Nice deep breath.
Which is a good reminder of, hey, if you haven't seen this episode, stop now, turn back. Do not continue forward because, man, a lot happened.
Yeah.
A lot was revealed.
We're talking, I mean, there's really no point in even, normally we have this thing where we don't talk about what we're talking about for a little bit, but we're talking about Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2.
Through the Valley.
Through the Valley.
Yeah. So again, we're coming from a point of view of being filmmakers, writers,
Actors.
Actors, I suppose, and video gamers. We played the game, but we are watching the series and commenting on it from, of course, a player point of view, but also looking at, hey, how do you manipulate this story for the media that it is now in?
It's been hard. It's been very hard knowing, and it must be how the Game of Thrones fans of the book have felt when the series is coming out. And I know you
it's got to be like that for everyone, right? Like there's something you love, whether you read it or you play it, or because that happens with comic book people too, right?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And it's like, and then we create, generally it tends to be, we translate it to film or TV. And then we get to see why those mediums
work or don't work.
Yeah,
right?
there's a specialty to each one of them.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're coming from, is to talk about how do we take this, what is probably, we both think is an exceptional game.
Yes.
And turn it into a good show.
Right.
That does it justice.
And also, Lizzie, who will be with us next week, she made a good point where your sister would probably only ever watch the show. So for people, and again, like my brother who would only ever watch the show, does that do the story that we know as gamers? Does it do it justice? The characters like Ellie and Joel and Abby and everybody kind of around them to make them feel the way we felt when we were playing through the game.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? That's a big deal for us, I think.
Yeah. And we talked about it a lot in the first one, where we were like, we just think that certain things, or at least for me, I was like, certain things wouldn't work the same way. Like if you're not actively playing this game, then that you can't do it in the same order as the game. You can't, because it's like, it just doesn't work the same way.
It would take too long.
There's something different about when you're actually having to make that choice, having to be in the position of the character, playing the character, making those choices. That does something different to you than when you're just watching it on a screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like reading a book. You're more intimate with that character. You feel how they felt.
Mm-hmm.
You're in their shoes for 10 hours, 15 hours a piece.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a little more removed on TV, so it's interesting to see if these things will get pulled off. And oh my God, this one for me, I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I was wondering if it would be just as impactful, and it was for me. I mean, maybe not.
Do we flag it? Do we put the spoiler flag
We already
up?
said it, I think, right?
Well, we got. I'm
You
gonna
wanna run it?
I want to run it up just so the people
This
that are
is
used to hearing it.
For the people who have not seen this episode.
And the most important takeaway of what we're gonna say is, if you haven't seen it, you got to watch it right now.
Yeah.
Watch it right now.
Watch it right now.
In the meantime,
Stick around.
that was it. Last warning.
And just to clarify, we will not go into spoilers if you haven't played the game, for the future stuff. We will only talk
Right.
about what was talked about in this episode.
In the show.
In this episode of the show.
Which is so hard for me to.
It is, of course.
You know,
yeah.
it's like having some knowledge of something that's happening and be like,
Yeah.
I have a secret and you want to know what it is, but my restraint is
Yes.
weak. So we'll
we
see.
want to share it with the people if they are brand new and haven't played this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, holy crap, the big one.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of set this in order because I pulled some clips from
God, there's no way.
after. So
How do we talk about this in
no,
order?
Well, I think you had made a really good point last week about, and just so that people that are listening, just to kind of maybe set a table of contents, to talk about some of the things that we touched on last week that kind of were disrupted or that we kind of thought was coming, like the attack on Jackson, Abby and Joel kind of having that contact. I don't know if we thought that Joel would get killed in this episode. I didn't. I lost the bet.
I lost the bet. Remember, I said it too.
Yeah.
Lizzie was correct.
Which is mind-boggling, but hey, good job, Lizzie.
I think maybe we were just hopeful they would stretch it out for us. But
Yeah.
I mean, let's be fair. Even as we're getting into this episode, like, I said it pretty early on where I was just like, there's so much to get through till
So
we get
much.
to this big catalyst moment. There's so much to get through
Yeah.
that I was like, no, it's still going to
no
happen in a different episode.
Yeah.
And it's funny to even see their BTS. They were like, this episode's huge. Like, there's so much we're going to go through. And
Yeah.
they were so right.
We were talking about it off air, and I think the second episode of this season is bigger than the biggest episode of last season, which I think was when when we were first introduced to the bloater at night, when the two brothers were trying to get shepherded out, and I can't think of the woman's name. It was such a great episode.
Oh,
the fight at
yeah.
night,
Yeah.
and the kid kills her, and she's got that great line where she tells the brother, "Kids die every day," and I thought that was so real, and that it just harkens back to the writing of this to what Neil Druckmann said. Okay, so anyway. This episode, it was so much to get through, like you said.
Yeah.
And it felt compressed. I'm go ahead.
No,
sorry.
you're good. You called the beginning of this episode is what I was gonna say. He called it right away. He was all like, Chris said, they're gonna open with an Abby flashback.
I think they
But
had
it was
to.
not quite a flashback, but it was like
How did you take that? Because what we're talking about again,
the very opening, right?
well, yeah, that wasn't in the game.
Oh,
And I can say that now
different.
because
yeah,
it was a little
different.
weird for me. I didn't know how to
So,
take that.
I mean, definitely dream sequence, right? We know that because she
Yeah.
wakes up. And so that there is a very similar sequence like that in the game, where, and I think it's dream like too, or maybe it's just like memories kind of thing. But her appearing in her own dream to tell her younger self not to go in there. That was new. That was new that they inserted. And I actually do think it was really smart. It gave us a context of the timeline.
So what are we talking about? We just saw it. So what is the scene
This
that
is
we're
the
referring?
hall. There's like a red hallway. And like I said, it's the dream. It's her dream. She's waking up from her dream. It's the very first scene in this episode. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Abby is trying to go down this hallway as her younger self. And there's alarms sounding, and you might be able to recognize it because it happened in the first season of this show, at the end, where it seems to be, the hospital that Joel was in, or Ellie was in, and Joel went and got her. But like I said, what didn't happen in the game is that her older self, her current self, Abby, is there telling her not to go in there. That didn't happen in the game, and I think it actually was a smart choice for this because, like I said, for me, they looked different ages right away, so it gave me the context of like, oh, this is definitely like flashbacky, going to a different time kind of thing. And she seems so different to me. I could look at them both, and it's like, and she's saying it in a way that's just like she's gone over this memory again and again, right? Like she's very almost exhausted about it. Like don't go.
I think
there,
she
like,
even
at
says
point.
that later.
She's like almost casual and exhausted because of the fact that it's like she's probably done this again and again. And
Yeah.
I don't. And she talks about the visual that happens. What do you see when you walk in and his brains are on the floor?
Right.
And that I think is important when we get a little bit later in this episode. I think there's an idea with this visual that I think they kind of come full circle when we get to the end of the episode.
Yeah, I can see them kind of buttoning it on that. I actually hated it. I didn't like it at all.
Really?
It felt like for this episode and this series especially to be so grounded in the here and now, I can't recall anything like this being in the first season. And I don't think you needed it at all in like leading up to what was going on. You could have played it differently. You could have just had Abby's younger self walking through the hallway with the sirens blaring. To me,
It gave us a little more context because all the only context we had in that first episode was like them standing at the graves and knowing that people they loved had died and that it was Joel.
Well,
and that's kind of it. They didn't give us anything else.
Well, I think her going through the hallway they could have kept. I don't think her older self talking to her younger self.
But then we wouldn't have got that line about that you don't go in there. His brains are splattered.
I mean, yeah, I know what.
So to me, like that was what the reason in my head that they put that there because that we needed more of a like, there's something visceral that happens.
I guess. I mean,
It's
yeah,
more motivation. It's a reminder. I don't know. I liked it. I get that you cannot, but I also don't understand why you don't.
yeah. Well, okay. So we in my thought was that we spent so much time with Joel and Ellie in the first episode that we definitely had to get some of Abby and her group just to time that out
And we
to
do.
kind of and we do. I think that her group is becoming more and more interesting to me.
Yeah.
I think we
Got
again
to see a little bit more of the dynamics, right?
I think you can also see that some of them don't want to do what she's doing. In fact,
Gosh.
you know, I think her Owen, the person. Well, anyway, Owen says
The Owen who seems the closest to her, right? Like
Yeah.
it seems like
There's some history
Can't tell
there.
if there's if they're in a relationship or what, but he seems very caring.
yeah,
of her.
it's never specified if they're in a
No.
relationship or not. Yeah. And so he seems to want to just talk her out of it. They all seem to want to talk her out of it. Like it becomes this obsession, right?
Yeah.
For her. And again, going back to
because they see the size of the town, right? Like they wake up and they're just like, holy crap, that is so much
It's like a
bigger.
city. Yeah.
And then he's like, I even went and scouted and it's fortified. And,
yeah.
you know
And that
what
was
I
a great
mean?
point, I think, because the only
Yeah.
people that are, and they even said the only people that are going to die are us.
Yes.
You know, I think that was a really cool point.
Yeah.
And she still chooses to go take point. She's like, she becomes excited about the idea of him saying, I have a plan, crystallization, or whatever the fuck they say. And he's just stringing her along. It's complete bullshit. He has no plan. His
Or like
plan-
you said, his plans to try to figure out how to convince her to not do
Yeah.
this. But she had the thought of to grab a couple of scouts. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think we see that idea stick with her a bit.
And it's great that they even say, if those scouts or if those people that they snag don't break, what then? We're not going to kill them. And which is, it
Yes.
says a lot about that group.
I think they're doing a good job with the group. I will say that because they were just like, we're not killing anyone else. We're only here for Joel. They're
Yeah.
not trying to hurt anybody else. They're just trying to do this one thing.
Yeah.
Which is, their own sense of justice, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. And they have values and stuff. We're like getting that, right?
Yeah.
It's good. I was like, this is smart. It's hard to not like this
Exactly.
group right now.
And I love that point. I also like in this episode how they paired up Joel and Dina.
Yeah.
Who is different because
Big
again,
changes from the game. Or
Big time.
Yeah, at least like the switching around, guys. Like, so the whole setup of we're going to go on these different scouts out here, that happens in the game. But it's interesting. They kind of prolonged it in that first episode. But it's like Dina is the one that goes with Ellie.
yeah, that first episode was kind of part of the second episode in the game.
Exactly.
Right?
They wanted to keep that dynamic in there, but they like mixed up the people. And then Joel was supposed to go out kind of the same. He had already went out on his scout, but he was supposed to go with his brother, with Tommy.
Yeah.
So interesting that they left Tommy behind, decided to go ahead and send Dina with Joel instead. And then let's keep Jesse with Ellie, which the Jesse-Ellie dynamic.
I love it.
Oh my God.
So good.
And that scene too, when he first comes to her door, is almost verbatim for like the game itself. You know what I mean? As far
Yeah.
as their exchange, but he's playing it so good. It's so freaking funny.
Yeah.
Like he's so lovable. So part of me was like, are they doing that just so we get a little bit more time with his character before we really get into everything? Like, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
what? And then the Dina pair up. Yeah, you said you like that.
I did like it. I think that as the episode progresses and we have a Joel and Dina kind of quick decision process, Dina seems very aware of it. She seems very like on her feet, like, what are we doing? And I liked that. I liked that Joel and Dina were together. And I liked it because I liked her more in this episode than last episode. Maybe because the stakes were incredibly high in this
Yeah.
episode. But also, you and I talked about this earlier off air where we know exactly how the game ends, and the creators have gone on record saying the TV series will mostly follow the game. So a lot of ways it's nice to be excited about, well, this didn't happen.
The changes.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
We're like, oh, what is this going to change up? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's like with Tommy going along with Joel, I mean, yeah, of course, when we get to the whole towards the ending, it's kind of a nice dynamic you have there of like him being in the room and things like that.
Yeah.
But the Dina relationship with Joel, they have built a lot more in the show than they did in the game.
Absolutely.
And I am actually really enjoying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we got to have that whole conversation where he called her kiddo and she came down and they were looking at mechanical parts and stuff, which gives us an idea that, you know, Dina's already kind of got like this, like she can kind of fix things or
Yeah.
do things kind of mind. And then, yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot too. I think I was a little worried when I first saw it. I was like, oh wait, shouldn't Tommy be there?
Yeah. Which I still am, because
Yeah.
I guess the way things pan out. Again, I don't want to stretch into the game, but further into the game, Tommy is a big.
We'll have to like talk about it in the spoilers, you know what I mean? But it's like
Yeah.
there's going to be roles to play, right? Like I mean, if you think we can all sit here and imagine that it's like when Tommy's going to hear what happened to Joel, like there's got to be some sort of
Some
reaction.
flick. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
you know what I
sense.
mean? You would think. And so again, in the game it was a bit different when we get to that moment where well, I guess we'll wait till we get to that moment.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Jackson thing, because where Tommy was at in this TV series, and he's holding it down at Jackson, and we found out at the end of the last episode, the audience knew, but the characters didn't, that the spores, I don't even, the worms,
Oh yeah, they're not spores.
What
They're
are they?
these roots or
Roots,
whatever they
thank you.
are, yeah.
have wormed their way into the pipes in Jackson. We figure that out in this episode, and so we're on red alert. That's where Tommy's at. I want to play a snippet from after the episode about the creators talking about the attack on Jackson.
Yeah.
In the game, we talk about how Jackson at times has been under different attacks.
We thought we had an opportunity to create even more of a sense of vulnerability, that it wasn't simply Joel or Ellie or Dina who was in trouble. Everyone was in trouble.
We have to intermix real stunts, practical effects with visual effects. I think that's the best use of visual effects. That's what we're here for, is to really fully immerse the audience into the story we're trying to tell.
So that set piece, if I feel like it's going to be big throughout the year, like that was a big fight.
It was a big fight that we definitely did not get in the game.
Absolutely.
At all.
Right? We got an inkling in the trailers and everything coming up. Like, when is this? But for us, we're trying to figure out when it would be. How does this shoehorn into the game? And it was great because it didn't.
Yeah,
It's its
like
own
they
thing.
said, it was something where there was slight talks of discussions of past attacks or whatever, right? Because they even have a moment where when they're first sounding the alarms, and she's like, "Is it raiders or infected or whatever?" You
Yeah,
know what
that's
I
right,
mean?
that's right.
And so it's like there's even the possibility that they're ready for raiders. They're ready for, you know what I mean? They're kind of ready for a few of these things.
Yeah.
Which was cool to see for sure, is to be like, hey, if you're in this kind of world, how do you prepare for this? But then it also went very wrong too, which is sad.
Yeah, and I got to say, the way that this was executed on screen, to me, and again, we were talking about this as we were watching it, felt a lot like, I think it's the Long Dark Night or the Long Night in the last
Yeah.
season of Game of Thrones, with the way that the infected were going against the White Walkers, I think. Is that what it was?
Oh, you mean they're like undead? Yeah, the White Walkers and the
The Undead Army or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they even sounded like them. The way they threw themselves against the wall even felt it. So maybe the special effects artist was the same person. I believe it was. But it felt great. It felt big.
Yeah.
It felt dangerous.
Yeah.
I love that. And like they just mentioned in this, that was the creator, Neil Druckmann, Craig Mazin, and the special effects supervisor talking. And Mazin says that everybody was in danger. And so they're cross-cutting in between something that is going to happen. You know that Abby's now with Joel, which is her ultimate goal. You know that Ellie is kind of looking out there for Joel and help me out. What's her name?
Oh, Dina?
Dina, thank you. And that we know that Tommy, who's also another principal character, as at Jackson kind of holding it down.
Yeah.
So we have all of this going on in this one episode, and it just makes it so intense and nerve-wracking.
It is nerve-wracking. Yeah. I was gonna say, so yeah, we hit a blizzard, right, when we're with Ellie and we're with Jesse, right? And, like, the weather starts coming in. That's one of the parts we go and explore. And they hold up in a place that's we find out Eugene, who was mentioned in the first episode, used to grow weed. And so that kind of similar thing happens in the game. It's just with Dina. And so Dina and Ellie are held up. And then what's fun about the game is we get to explore the relationship a little bit. Like, they get to talk after they just had what the dance that we got to see was, you know what I mean? And the first kiss and things like that. And they get to, like, kind of deepen or whatever their relationship. So, but now it's more interesting. We get Jesse in there and we get a little more backstory about Eugene a little bit, right?
And he's going to get his own episode. That's.
You sure about this?
Well, I would bet money. I'm almost certain Craig Mazin said that. Which they keep alluding to how interesting this character was. He got that call out, and it's great that Jesse says, well, great and terrible, that he's like, he was in Vietnam and how terrible it is that he survived the war only to be killed or
to go out that
way. And they say
Joel said there's no
him.
saving him. He had to put him down. He's like, Joel had to put him down,
so
and there was no saving him. Yeah. So to us, we were like, oh, he must have got bit or something happened. He got infected.
Maybe spores. Interesting. That'd be a neat way.
Interesting.
But they allude to this dude too much for him not to play a part later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going back to the Jackson attack really quick, I like the fact that they brought in dogs because Jackson does not have dogs in the game.
Nope. And I don't know how much we want to say about that.
Well, let's not. Let's
like, there
on.
are dogs in the game.
Yes.
And so there was like little ode to like, well, yeah, it's nice to know that they do have dogs that they've trained to attack these.
And I love that we didn't see any dogs die on camera.
Yeah, we're huge fans of that.
We don't like seeing any dogs die on camera.
Yeah, so there was that a dynamic, and then we had did we go into Abby and her?
I want to talk about her real quick. A scene that I talked about specifically was, and it's iconic if you've played the game, if you've seen the trailers, where you're playing as Abby and you're running away and the wall collapses in, right? Like this chain link fence starts to fall on you. And I have a clip I want to play for that really quick. This is kind of also leading into the introduction when Abby sees Joel, which I know you have thoughts on too. 1 second.
Attacked by the infected, and the fence starts collapsing. But she has to crawl through that to the end where Joel finds her.
So
who was that talking?
That was one of the special effects supervisors.
Oh, copy.
Sorry.
And he was guessing that he was describing it.
Yeah, because they had to do VFX for infected pushing against the.
Copy.
Okay, but this scene is a big fucking deal when it's huge because
it's very memorable, but it's funny that you're like, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal because it funnels Abby out to see Joel.
I mean, there is that. It's very well done. They do it very similarly to the game. Look, in the game, we don't get the first part where she runs into the infected, which is just the fact that they were literally in the snow underneath dead other infected.
Which is a cool shot. Great shot.
So gross. And I keep being like, now that they're out from underneath all those other ones, are they now going to freeze? I hope so, because that was quite a lot of them. But
yeah, I don't get how that works. If you're under the snow, I guess they're insulated. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, you can insulate yourself. You can think of
igloo?
kind of like an igloo. You know what I mean? Like your own warmth. Actually, they're dead. How would they have warmth?
Yeah, we don't know. This is one of those.
But the ground
fix it in writing.
You know what I mean? Like if the atmosphere is colder than underneath the ground, which it would be, then you know what I mean. You do have some protection by just burying yourself in general. So
don't act like you know how infecteds live.
Hey, you got to look up how to survive in the wilderness. I know you're not a camper and things.
I'm not. It's true.
But anyways, that was new and cool. And then the gate is pretty iconic and pretty close to how you feel in the game. It feels claustrophobic as you're going through and collapsing. And then I do think it is pretty close to there where in the game, Abby runs into Joel and Tommy. But here we just run into Joel and then eventually.
And this is where, in that part in the game, that's when she finds out that it's Joel.
Yeah, in the game, it's a bit different for sure. And it's hard to talk too much about it because of the fact that it's set up, the whole game is set up a bit different in their storytelling. But I think I mentioned this in the first episode, that there's a great moment where she runs into them and they save her. And then they very quickly are just exchanging names. I think Tommy says, or maybe it is Joel or something, but either way, they introduce themselves, and there's just this great shot on Abby in the game where she's just kind of stunned for a moment. And there's like a great they decided to still kind of stick with that, just in a little bit of a different way, where Dina yells out Joel.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, the reaction that's on the actress's face, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's good. She goes through everything. She goes through every emotion. It was so sick. I was really happy with the way they did that moment. And they made it smart too, where she looks for her weapons and she doesn't have her weapons.
How would she react in that moment? And the casting, she was serviceable in the first episode, but in this episode,
you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
And that to me was kind of Caitlin's coming out and coming into this in her own as being Abby in The Last of Us, which people don't know yet, but it's a big fucking deal.
It is a big deal. There were some good moments for her in this episode.
I want to talk about that.
Even like her when she was in deciding to go after these two on the horses, and she not knowing who they were. There's just like this determination and stuff. She's like freaking freezing, and she's still and she's making kind of dumb decisions at some point to be like, risking it to go down this hill and do these things. But that's just so Abby. Like Abby is just so I'm one-minded, need to get this done kind of thing. Determined.
I'm gonna play some stuff in a little bit that kind of layers in that character, and I think that's such an interesting take. But you're right. It does speak about her as a character, but also like the motivations that she has, and almost like, hey, she's willing to kind of forgo her own safety to get what she hoped. Because when she went after those two people she didn't know that was Joel. She had no idea.
No, exactly.
So, you know what I mean? It was like, these are just two people that might in some way roundaboutly help her find Joel.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, let me chase after them.
And she gets incredibly lucky.
Yeah. I want to talk about the casting of Caitlin in a second. This is going to be the creator and director talking about the casting.
When I heard that Caitlin had been cast as Abby, that was just such an exciting piece of casting to me, and again, the opportunity to work with an actor who I have such admiration for.
Don't go in there. Stop it. I'm telling you, go back. No.
Meeting Caitlin was amazing, and it's very ironic that something so violent and tragic between its characters can immediately bond you to the actor.
I've always loved her. I loved everything she's been in, and it just felt like a great fit. And it felt like, oh, this will be a good counterpoint to Ellie in the story.
When we talk about casting main characters, what you're really looking for is somebody that reflects back at you naturally what you know you need to see. So we got very excited about this idea, and we sat down and met Caitlin, and she got excited too. And here's a chance to play not a villain, but an anti-hero. Right. She is a force of nature. She will not be stopped. And if that reminds you of somebody else in our story, another young woman, well, yeah, that's Ellie too.
Yeah, and I think that's a big deal. That's a big thing that, if you've heard anything about the game or if you played the game, it's like there's a different stature to her.
The physicality, I think, is different.
The physicality, yeah. Very buff by the time we hit this point in her story and things like that. It just built. So there was some complaints from people when they were seeing who was cast, because they just were like, she doesn't have that physicality.
Yeah.
And for me, I kept being like, it's a different medium. We just don't know. Like, you know what I mean? And sure enough, I'm seeing it where I'm like, this makes sense. Like, you can draw these parallels between these characters immediately because they feel similar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they feel similar in how they act. They look similar, like all these things that I'm just like, I don't know. Like, to me, it's like, I think this is going to pair up really nicely.
Yeah. I think if you put them in a ring together, it's kind of even. Where if you put the game Abby in the ring against the game Ellie, it's not at all even. Like, Abby would crush her skull with her hands.
Right.
So I think that here it makes for a more interesting dynamic. And they've already shown that they're willing to change certain things in that. But I truly believe that, you mentioned it right before I played that clip, where Abby is so dedicated. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that seeing the resolve that Caitlin plays, especially in this episode, as we get to a specific scene when she kills Joel, it really kind of comes out.
Yeah.
There, I have some issues, funny enough, as much as I'm praising Caitlin and the character Abby, I have some issues where she played that scene. But I don't want to take away from
What scene?
the scene where she kills Joel. And I don't want to take away what Caitlin did when she finds out that Joel has saved her. They even make a point on the podcast after the show to talk about that, what the actress did in that moment to really convey that this is the guy I've been looking for. Where's my sidearm? I don't have a knife. I don't have a gun. What do I do? How do I get him back? And like all of this,
Part of it being like, you just saved me. Yeah.
yeah, and all of this can be read on her face. And a great line too is when they get back to the lodge, she says, "Help them."
Yeah.
Partly for obviously to keep Joel alive so she can torture him, but also I believe that she doesn't really want to kill Dina. She
Yeah.
wants to make sure Dina's okay. And obviously the way Mel, plays, I have to get on this now, otherwise you're going to lose some skin from frostbite.
Do you still think that about Abby though? Because she does threaten her life. She says, "You need to tell us this, or we'll kill her."
But I don't know. Like when and that's part
It's
of
just
my,
a question. Do
No,
you think
I
if
don't.
she?
No,
Do you
I
think
don't.
she meant it?
I don't think she meant
She
it.
was bluffing.
I do. What do you think so?
I have mixed because of the fact that she was willing to go after these two scouts that she saw. She was willing to go on after the two patrol people, not knowing who they were, knowing that her friends had just said, "What are you going to do? You're going to have to kill them." Like there's nothing, you know what I mean? Whether
Right.
they help us or not, you can't let them go.
Right.
And she was willing to go do that.
And she did it, knowing that. Yeah, that's true.
But at the same time, as we clearly get to see, they're even interrupted by Ellie by the end of this, and they don't kill her, and they seem like they want to. At least one of them. At least it definitely feels that way. So I'm with you. It could go either way for me. So yeah, I just was curious what you thought.
So,
but I'm with you. That was. I don't get me wrong. I do want to say, like, game wise, of course, I will always miss like buff Abby. Like, it's just like there's something fantastic about that.
Yeah.
And you can see that they're going in a different way with the character, but it's still so far working for me.
Yeah, I don't have any. I'm completely okay with it right now. And then again, I love Caitlin as an actress, and I think who was it? Neil Druckmann in that clip said that he's loved also everything she's been in. Although I don't think anybody's ever played anything like Abby from Last of Us either. So, I mean, there's that. It's like, you don't play Abby until you've played Abby. And I think we'll see how that plays out the further in we go. But, you know, one of the things I had, I guess I really want to start talking about the Joel scene, I think.
Okay.
And,
I mean, yeah, they could. Well, we weren't that too far off, right? I mean, because that's basically it. Is we get over there. I mean, other than there's the Tommy struggling and fire and things like that. But I mean, I'll be honest. As much as big as and awesome as that part of the episode is with Jackson, it just isn't the main event by the time we get to the end of this episode.
isn't that crazy? Like.
There's so much that happens, and I'm like I said, how do we go in order talking about this episode? Like, all I want to do is talk about this moment.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I'll bring it up after, towards we're wrapping it up. But it's through all the action, all the big set pieces, the flamethrowers, the explosions, the bullets, the fucking bloater. Like all you really want to see is this part, and they save it, and it's a character that we care about, that we learn to love.
Yeah,
who was a scoundrel for as long as we known him before he met Ellie.
Right.
And then he's in a room with somebody who, and again, I love what I think it was Mason or Druckmann said last episode, where it's kind of like, well, you do one thing and you start ripples, and eventually that ripple will catch up with you.
Right.
And that ripple finally caught up with Joel at this episode.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. They get to the lodge. That's what it's called. Yeah, the lodge. And Abby plays it pretty cool for a little bit there.
She does.
She even makes it a point to, I mean, I almost like the methodical, like the introducing of everybody. Like you just kind of knew she was going to get to it. You know what I mean? Her name's Dina and his name is Joel. And it's like everybody just stops.
You have a great noticing of, I didn't notice it, but you mentioned last episode in the game, when she says that, there's like a moment where everybody just kind of like stops and looks at Joel. And then Tommy said something to like, you think you heard it or something.
Yeah, Joel and Tommy are the ones that they introduce themselves again when they're in the room because it's kind of similar. They all rush in really quick. In the game, Owen goes up to Abby really quick and is like, oh, like who are they or whatever, and she says something about they saved me, and he's all like, you got so lucky, and she's like, you have no idea.
Oh,
and
shut up.
Yeah, so
I
even
didn't know
that's
that.
like oh, okay. And then she kind of disappears almost in the scene that we're seeing in the game, and the two of them, the brothers Tommy and Joel are, just being like, "Oh, yeah, thanks for letting us in," and things like that. And then they talk about where they're from. They're like, we're from Jackson. If you guys want, right after this storm clears up or whatever, we can go. You guys can restock all your stuff. Like they're being very nice to each other. Everybody's being nice, and they're talking about restock your gear, like your supplies or whatever, before you go on your way. Because I think they mentioned quickly they're from Seattle and things like that. And then they're like, someone introduces themselves, like Mel or somebody introduces themselves. And yeah, it's the same kind of thing of like, I'm Tommy, that's my brother Joel. And then it's just like quiet. And everybody like who's in that room that's with Abby just is quiet and staring at them. And then, yeah, I think Joel actually is the one that says, you all look like you've heard about us. And then the camera turns and Abby's like, because they have. And she shoots him in the knee, just like we see in the show.
So
it's a little more graphic in the game, but
way more graphic in the game, yeah, I think.
It basically almost shoots off his lower leg. But yeah,
which I think they should have done. I think they should have gone more graphic in this series, in this episode.
They would. I gotta say, when we got those close-ups, we didn't get those kind of close-ups in the game until we're having flashes of it later.
No,
in the moment they kept it. They didn't show us that much, so I'm like, they went pretty graphic for this.
And I honestly,
for a show,
I honestly think the reason they didn't was the Glenn thing from Walking Dead. And if people know Walking Dead, the way they killed Glenn off in such that graphic way with his eyeball which by the way is comic accurate to the representation of how it looked, pretty much for the most part.
I mean, they went exactly like you said, the comic moment,
eyeball popping out, moment, and his head split.
Not comedy.
Yeah, I didn't say comedy. Did I say comedy?
But just like the comic way of it.
Oh, my bad.
It wasn't
the
like
comic
that.
book, the way it was represented in that. I apologize if I said that. But so I believe that probably influenced this because I think it should have been way more graphic. Way more graphic. I mean, they want you to.
But here's the thing: it still landed. It was still brutal. It still felt effed up, whether we saw all of it or not. And we don't see a lot of it in the game. I'm going to be real. We don't.
Yeah, I know. We follow Ellie. Ellie hears them just like she does in the episode and kind of comes in and.
Yeah. So yeah, the biggest difference. Well, there's a couple. So now we don't have Tom anymore. When that part happens in the game. She shoots. Of course, Tommy goes to lunge for her or the rest of them, and then they kind of grab him and they beat him up a little bit, like to the point where I think they knock him out. Like they're holding him down for a bit, and I think they have to knock him out, like physically. So he gets a little bit beat up, but they kind of leave him be. You know what I mean? But they didn't do that in here with Dina. And I think that was very purposeful, right? Mm-hmm. With Dina, they're like, let's give her a sedative, a thing that'll make her pass out for an hour.
Right.
And that I was like, that was way more, again, trying to be kind of kind. And even the moment of when they held her hostage, they were trying to be like, Mel, the girl that's
like the doctor-ish.
The one, yeah, she's the one that's kind of doing all the doctoring, like the one who identifies that she's got frostbite and then does the tourniquet and things like that. And then seems to have the hardest time with this whole situation by the end of it. She, is the one who reacts when they say like, tell us the truth about this or we're gonna hurt her or whatever. Yeah. We get so much more talking in this scene in this show than we do in the game.
How did you feel about that?
I have mixed feelings on it. I think you had to do it. I think
the exposition. I
think you had to give us more exposition.
Yeah.
Because again, it's just this medium. It has to work that way.
It's compressed, right?
It's so much more compressed. We can't take our time with it and have slow reveals. And again, like the game, you get things over time in different ways, like whether you find little items or whatever, you know what I mean? It just couldn't work that way with this. So I think she did have to do this. But I mean, no matter what, I'll always feel like the game is going to kind of do it a little better.
Yeah.
And it felt so much more ominous and stuff in the game because in the game, it's more like, she asks him, do you know who we are? Or something like that. It's something along those lines. And he doesn't really have an answer. And then I think he at some point basically says to the effect of like, get your speech out of the way and do what you got to do, is what he kind of says. Like, so there's not a lot of back and forth about why they're doing this.
Oh, it just goes into that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But again, because it's the game and it's the way it's set up, it's like alluded to, because we're going to get to it later. And because this is how this is, like it's a show, people can drop off whenever they want. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of think you had to go ahead and tell them why we're here.
And I think that's
who
fair.
We are.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's go ahead and reveal that it's you killed Abby's dad.
I mean, that's not the first time in fucking film and television that they've had a 3-minute exposition. Like, I'm hunting you because of this. Like, it's fucking, we do that all the time.
And we still got a little satisfying moment when he tells her to shut the fuck up,
I know you were on that. You're like, hey, he says that she gave him that line where.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump to it a little bit later, but
Okay.
but I was gonna say, yeah, for this we almost had to know, like she had to get into the Fireflies talk, and it makes it change for Joel. In the
It does.
game, it feels like he's done a lot of bad things in his past, which we kind of talked about with Tess and things like that. But here it's like he's easily able to identify, what do we look like to you? We look like military
soldiers.
You know what I mean? And then he's able to kind of put together Fireflies and they get into it,
I think that in her speech, she says, first of all, and also she does reveal that the surgeon was her father.
Yep.
Which is obviously that ripple.
Killed
of,
one doctor. The
yeah,
surgeon.
18 soldiers or how many soldiers and one surgeon, her father.
Which is a pretty solid reason why this chick might want to go after him.
Right. And I think that, again, what Druckmann said last week when he said it, where your alliances, again, I'm paraphrasing, where your alliances are depends on what your point of view is on the characters. Like, Abby, in my opinion, is, and I'll talk about this later throughout the entire series, I'm sure in length, that I think she's absolutely right in doing what she does. Just because we spent time with Joel doesn't mean he didn't kill her dad. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean he didn't rob possibly the world of a cure. I mean, you had mentioned that off when we were talking about it off air. Like, that might have worked. We don't know. Let's assume that it didn't for the sake of the story.
Yeah, I mean,
but it could have.
Right. We don't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
We just don't know. And I don't know if we'll get to that at some point or something, but
yeah, I hope not.
I would actually, I think if you're going to raise the stakes, you make it sound like that the cure was very, very realistic.
Well,
but at the same time, that's a me opinion kind of a thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So we don't know how realistic it was, but at the same time, yeah, you're looking at a doctor who was trying to find the cure to this whole damn, you know what I mean? Like, that's fine. You know what I mean? Even if it takes one life, it's kind of like, you can save how many lives?
Right. There's that question. Would you sacrifice your kid if it saved 1 billion people?
Yeah.
And you were listening to the podcast after the episode, and Amazing made a great point about that. He said something about the trolley effect.
When we say the podcast, there's a podcast specifically run by Troy Baker, or hosted by, and then he talks with the creators, which is Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann. And Troy Baker's the original voice actor for Joel in the game Last of Us. So it's really lovely. They do a great job on this podcast if you want to look it up.
Worth its weight. For sure.
Which is why I like listening to it. And I do feel like they're very empathetic to how people feel about this episode.
Well, anyway, but I was going to say, he says something about like a trolley effect, in where Joel in his mind.
Oh, this trolley scenario.
The trolley scenario. Okay. That was so to the effect of where, like, hey, if it's
train tracks, which track?
If it's coming towards me and my kid or 100 people, there's no question.
Yeah.
It's 100 people, not my kid.
Well, it depends. Everyone's got the answer, right? And that's the thing they always say. Is it going to kill one person that you know, or, 100 people you don't know?
Right.
And
but for Joel, that's not an issue.
Which way do you steer the trolley or the train? Which way? You have to just make that decision. And so it's a philosophical kind of whatever.
Right. So for Joel, that was a pretty, I think.
Yeah, Joel made his decision.
And so because of that, the ripples that come back to him is the daughter of the man that he killed. Right. And so the snippet that you were referring to earlier that we just heard a little bit ago says that, don't go in there because your dad's laying on the ground dead with his brains blown out.
Yeah.
You don't want to see that. And so even in Abby's monologue, before she kills Joel, she's monologuing as, Edna would say, never monologue, but she gets away with it, I guess. We love The Incredibles. But she says something to the effect where you didn't even look at him. The other doctors in the room said, you didn't even look at my dad. It's like, it was so cold what you did to him.
And it was. We
right?
all saw it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They give us a flash of it too, which is really nice.
They have to, right?
Give
They
you the
have to.
slight reminder. But yeah, he's just in the room. I don't care who you are. You're in the way.
Yeah, 100%.
And this is the moment of like, no, you just killed somebody's father.
Right.
You know what I mean? Wow. So yeah, the speech is like it's a little long-winded for me. It's a little bit hard, but I get why it had to be there. You know what I mean? So yeah, we had to have it justified. That's the whole thing for her actions, for us to not immediately be like, F the show, I'm out. I think you have to have it justified.
Right. Her motivations are, if you put yourself in her shoes, they may be your motivations. Like, it's hard to, and again, I'm going to argue probably again for the rest of the series, I believe Abby was right. And Joel's.
Did she have to do it that slowly though?
No,
Did she have to be that cruel?
Well, I guess.
Because
Yeah,
she was in
I think
pain.
so. I think she did. I think there was no other way and to the point where it affected her group. But that other group that she was with, it wasn't their dad that had his brains blown out.
Well, we don't really know.
Assume that it wasn't. Because I think that if it was them, you're right. You could be right, but I'm going to assume that it wasn't. So like, again, this is where the passionate, revengeful Chris comes out. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, she did it too fast. She should have blown off his leg. But for me, I had an issue with the performance.
Really?
Yeah, I think that in several beats, and obviously this is probably done over several takes, right? Just like most monologue scenes are, multiple cameras, moving cameras, whatever. You probably have a couple different times going through it. It seemed like to me, she came out of being like out of the elements too fast and went right into villain speak. Like, I didn't like that. I would like for her to have been a little more, because even though I know the character has been waiting 5 years for this, to torture this man in the slowest way possible. She says that in the first episode. Like, even though that's been on her mind, it's also a point where she's also like losing her dad. Like, she's like, I know she's probably squared that, but at the same time, like, they're inextricable at this point. Revenge is an effect of something. I would have to think of that initial effect in that moment. And so I would like to have seen more emotion from Caitlin throughout that speech, building to her villain speak. I thought she got into her villain speak too soon. I would like to have.
I enjoyed her opening, which was the whole, oh gosh, I just lost it.
It's when she introduces everybody, right?
Well, there's that. And I did enjoy that. Like I said, I like the slow, methodical introducing. I'm going to have to come back to it.
Okay, we'll come back to it. But just something that I noticed, and again, maybe I'll change my mind on another watch. But for me, it just didn't feel true, I guess.
She, I just remembered she opened it with, going into his description. Oh, you are
handsome.
Yeah, you are telling him, congratulations, you are pretty handsome or whatever. Like, which was, going back to when they were like, oh, we have this information on this guy who did it. His name was maybe Joel or Joe, or it's, confused, and, it's these description or whatever. So to me, I felt like I had the range, because she does start off kind of like a sarcastic, sort of harsh, like, and then starts getting into the emotion of it. I love the moment that it's kind of the same in the game, but it's great there too, where she, turns and looks over to where the golf clubs are, and then turns back. That's a really good moment.
Her spinning in the hand to me was a little much. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Again, maybe it's a character choice. Maybe it's a director choice. She didn't need to flip it around. Like,
she's deciding how to kill this guy. To me, it makes sense that you're like, that's the thing. She wants it to hurt. She wants it to be painful for this guy, to go slow. So this is that moment of being like, is this my torture device? Is this my toy? You know what I mean?
It was cool that that's how she found it, because it is that way in the game. That's what she used to kill him in the game too. So I like that link to link. I did enjoy that.
Yeah. And so, but I'm with you. I don't know if I could blame it on performance. I just think it's kind of a long-winded speech. It's kind of a lot of exposition to get through.
And it's heavy exposition.
Exposition.
It's, emotional peaks and valleys, and you know what I mean? Again, like
there's part of me that I wish we'd taken some of that out.
Yeah.
But
well, I don't know.
I don't know. That's my problem. I go back and forth on it, because of the fact that I think, again, story-wise, and for us watching it on TV, if we're going to come back and watch again next week without just blowing off the show as like, I can't believe they've done that and that's the end of it, you know what I mean? Then yeah, it's like you said, it's the Walking Dead Glenn moment. That was like a straight up villain that he had no reason to kill Glenn. You know what I mean? There was no justifiable reason. And even though he's a glorious villain, it's one of those where you just, because you have such a beloved character, it was too much and people said, I'm done with this show. That was way too cruel. That crossed the line kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I think this is the same kind of setup that could happen where people could, I think they say it in the BTS of this, or maybe it's the podcast, but they're like talking about, we're used to a certain narrative. We're used to like, the good guys doing good. We have the good and the bad, and it's very clear, and the good guys are going to win and things like that. And it's like, and that's not real life. That's not how it really is, unfortunately. And so that's what they're doing, is it's like, we don't have a villain here. Like they said, we kind of have an anti-hero is what they're creating in Abby, as they said in your quote that you played. And so I think it's with that, it's they needed to give her a little more of an explanation for us, the audience,
to hang on,
to
not hate her,
understand why and where she is coming from in this decision. And and Joel is kind of pretty accepting of it, to be honest.
Okay, I want to talk about that because she rattles off in her speech that he's kind of an asshole. He's killed people. He's robbed people. He's a raider. Like, he's not a good person. Again, going back to what Tess said last season, we're not good people. But if you can do this one thing, maybe that redeems you. Maybe you can save as many as you can, and that will put your tickers to the right side of bad. You know what I mean? So like,
that's true. With Tess had that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Abby here says, you're not a good person. You killed a good person. You killed someone who was usable in the apocalypse. You killed a fucking surgeon, right?
Yeah.
You didn't kill like a painter, or not that painters are important, but you killed someone who can actually help people in this world.
Yep.
And you're a piece of shit, right? And like, and you just mentioned, you said he kind of accepts it. I think Joel deep down knows he's a piece of shit.
I think Joel, he's going to stick to this choice. It's the same thing we saw in the therapy session where he says, I saved her. That's his line. He is not going to go into the details of what happened. He might deep down somewhere. I mean, he knows it's wrong. He's got to know it's wrong. That's the whole thing. He knows it wasn't right.
She says that. There are some things that are just wrong.
Yes, that's a big part of the speech where it's like, everybody will know that this is just wrong kind of a thing. And he knows that. I think he very much knows that. And I think he just knows that that's the decision I made and I stand by it. Like that's the feeling I got from it.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean? Which is again kind of what we get in the game too, where in the game, we don't get all the speech, but we do get him saying, just do what you got to do.
But what's great about that is that she's right too. Like, you know what I mean? She's not wrong.
No, that's the great conflict they're creating here, right?
Right.
We have a very lovable character that we understand why he did what he did, even if we know it's wrong. And now we're going to have another character who is about to do something that is almost unforgivable to us in the sense of killing like a very beloved character.
Right.
Oh, is she wrong? She's kind of not
Hell
wrong.
no.
She's kind of not
Hell
wrong.
no. Right. And she's got that great line. And I want you to say it before I run the next clip, and they're going to talk about Pedro.
Yeah, like I said in the game, we have his last kind of line to her is that like just get your speech out of the way or whatever and do what you got to do. And it's funny because it's pretty iconic what she comes back with. And so I was wondering with this setup, I was like, well, clearly this setup we have like a whole speech in here. So he's not going to say, you know what I mean? Like we've missed the point of saying that. Instead, he tries to tell her to shut the fuck up or something, right? And then we get the iconic line, which is her first saying, you stupid old man, which I thought there was a fucking in there, but maybe they cut it for TV. But either way, you stupid old man, you're not going to rush this. And it's like verbatim how it goes in the game.
Yeah.
Except that we get a hit to the head, I think, in the game instead of to the knee first or whatever.
That's how she kills him. She hits him in the head with the fucking.
Yeah, I mean, she's clearly when we come back, she's beating him up in the head. But we get some golf clubs hit to the head, which are you can imagine is much worse.
Yeah.
And again, you're with a game, so it's more graphic, but it's not real people graphic.
Right.
So I think there's kind of a line there they can walk. But yeah, the final blow in the game is with a club too. That's just the hard end of the club hitting him in the head, crushing his skull, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So it's pretty brutal. And this one, we still get to see the final blow. It's just different. It's not,
Let's talk about how Ellie introduces herself to the scene, and I'm going to run the clip about that, because this happens a lot like how the game is. This happens.
Yeah, this was really close to the
It
game.
was,
where
right?
she
Even
comes
the
in.
and even the guy that grabs her is the same guy, and she like cuts him. With
No, it's actually not.
It's not.
It's not.
Who grabs her in the game?
Ooh, a character who's not in the show.
No.
100%. There's a character who's not in the show that grabs her. She cuts him on the cheek, more.
Yeah.
Up here, it was on the head for this character for some reason. And it scars him. And
bring it up later.
and I can say it because he doesn't exist in this, but in the game he shows up. He's one of the first ones that eventually we see again.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And there's like even a line about the fact that he's scarred and things like that. So he doesn't exist in this game. This show, they decided to take the most memorable characters out of her in her group, and those are the ones that are in the room right now. There was definitely at least 2 other people in the game that were in the room that aren't there now, that don't need to exist, because again, we're gonna tighten everything up,
compress
right?
it. Yeah.
All these characters are pretty memorable that are existing right now.
Well, I didn't know that. Well, anyway, so Abby shows up. She finds the lodge. Ellie, sorry, thank you. Ellie shows up, finds the lodge. She hears a struggling above. This again, just like the game. She enters.
Very close. I think the only thing is that she went downstairs instead when she originally in the game. It's literally a slight difference.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just saying. But
So she gets into the room, and then she's disarmed and thrown to the ground. She does injure somebody. She does cut someone, just like it happens in the game, but different person, obviously.
yeah,
And then they pin her down, and
and
they
she
make her.
and she can see him across the way like
Yeah.
this.
And by this point, when she's in the room, he's fucked up. Like he is on his way
Yeah,
out. type
just
of
like
thing.
we got to see again.
But you noticed something that was true in the show that wasn't true in the game, when he was still kind of.
Oh yeah.
So talk about that, because I didn't see that.
Yeah. So very similar, right? Like you said, and she's on the ground, and it's so heartbreaking because she's just yelling, "Joel, get up. Joel, get up." And it's like, that's how I think all of us audience members are feeling, right? And even in the game, it's very much that like, oh my God, this can't be happening. Get up. What they did in this show that I didn't happen in the game is that he does slightly raise his head at one point when she's yelling at him to get up. It's like the slightest glimmer of hope they like give us. Which was so terribly heartbreaking and so mean.
And
in the game,
they're looking at each other too. In the show, it's like
it's so much more clear that he's like meeting eyes with her and like, you know what I mean? And in the game, it's hard to tell if he is registering she's there.
Yeah.
I would say. And
it's
he's
a human aspect of it, right? The human actor opposed to
totally. It's hard to register if he is actually fully. I mean, his eye is shut, kind of the way they have in the show, and one of them is kind of open. It's just hard to tell if he can focus or not, and he very much can't get up. Like it's just his head is so brutalized and things that it's pretty damn clear. I mean, and also again with that first gunshot we saw in the game, it's like the lower half of his leg is like not attached almost, or it's by strings. You know what I mean? So there's that. Like you're just in the game realizing slowly as this is unfolding. I mean, when she's coming into the room, you're like, yes, please stop this. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then she gets pinned down, and it's just like this hope is just slowly going out of you.
Right.
And in the show, they gave us just this tiny little glimmer of hope, which I feel like is so cruel. Yeah. And then, Owen says, end it. You know what I mean?
And so again, this really harkens back to the group just kind of being like normal people. They're not like vindictive about it's like Abby, but again, it wasn't their parents or whatever.
Yeah.
That we know.
Abby is doing much more, and Owen the whole time is trying to kind of call her off. Abby
seems almost evil in this first
100%.
part of it. Again, motivated for sure. Again,
but she's like lost her sense of humanity in this moment or something.
And her group always seems to kind of reel her back in, which I think is gonna be important later. But yeah, I think that Bella and Joel and Bella and Pedro in that moment, the actors with Bella crying and just looking at Joel and what that means to not just her, but the audience on such a widely accepted show. And these people like it really captured the hearts and minds of people that have no fucking idea what The Last of Us was. There are people that have never played the video game that love the series. And it was because of Joel and Ellie.
It's such a good story, and I've said that it's like it's nice that they can actually share this story with people who don't play video games.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Me too.
But holy crap, is it completely heartbreaking?
It's hard. It's a hard watch. I mean, it's not as hard as Chernobyl, which again is Craig Mazin's best work. I'll say that forever, but it is hard. It's hard to watch. And
when I played the game, I was a complete mess after the scene. I was a complete mess during the scene. I was a complete mess after the scene.
Well, there's a whole thing that happened about that on the game. We'll get that in a second. I don't want to. Because we can talk about that all night. Like what happened, the way people left the game and how enraged people are that they killed Joel was I had never seen anything like that before. But
and again, you have to understand things unfolded differently in the game than they did in this show. Because again, you're in a game, and if you invest the time and you're going to keep playing, which was the assumption by the game makers, then they have more time to tell a story. You know what I mean? We can say it now in the sense that it's like in the game at this point when he dies, you have no idea why Abby is there. You don't know what her motivation is whatsoever.
That's true.
You have no
That's
idea.
true.
It is absolutely a group has shown up. They are going after Joel.
Wait, is that true? We have I thought.
No, we have
Really?
no inkling. Like I said, that's why there isn't a speech in this moment. There isn't a speech in this moment because of that. She asks, do you know why we're doing this or why we want to kill you? There's some question there that
It's a great reveal then. Holy
something
shit.
like that. Yeah. And that's why he just says, I don't just do what you got to do kind of a thing. So they gloss way the fuck over it. You can make your own assumptions because you just played the last game and you can guess to it. But they do not tell you. There is never a mention of what has happened, that she has lost anybody, that he killed anyone. We have no idea that this group is involved with that hospital. Nothing. So that doesn't get revealed until much later in the game, which is why this was a much harder moment for some people playing the game. I mean, in the sense of being turning against the game.
Well, yeah.
And that's why I said, how do you do that for a TV show?
I don't think that recipe has been cracked yet, but we're getting close.
Well, that's why I think they had to reveal so much more ahead of time. You know what I mean? So, which is why we had the speech, which is why we have all of this stuff.
And in just going back to the death really quick, when they actually stab, because she actually stabs Joel in the windpipe or in the neck with the part of a golf club, and Ellie, it looks like she has a collapsed lung from what we get from the episode, the preview for next week's episode.
Yeah, if she's that bad,
She crawls over to him and they have this moment where it seems like he's still alive for a fraction of a second when they're holding each other. And on the production side of it, they have this crane shot, and they even talk about it, where they just want to show the empty space, and it's Ellie and Joel and a father and his surrogate daughter. And it's just so, that to me was fucking sad. That was so hard to watch.
Because clearly I was trying to prepare myself for this scene because I knew I was going to hurt no matter what. And I'm already getting emotional thinking about it. But it is one of those where that part wasn't in the game. With the crawling over. So she does get kicked and things like that, and she's being pinned down. Abby takes him out. It goes kind of, we get that noise, that ringing in the ear, that tinnitus kind of thing that happens in games or movies, where the group starts arguing about if they're going to kill Ellie or not. And they decide not to. Of course, but they knock her out. They kick her in the face and she gets knocked out. And so that's how the game gets you away from that moment. You know what I mean? Until somebody comes in to find her.
And we just pick it up for the game part of it.
Again, interestingly enough, it was Dina who comes in and finds them, which, Dina was probably with Jesse. I think it was the two of them on their own. Or no, it is just Dina, because that's again that they were grouped up. They went and split off to go find Joel, and then so Dina.
Jesse had Dina's role in this episode, I think, and it was a continuation of last episode.
And like I said, it was Tommy was also there, right? And he's knocked out on the ground. But so instead, of course, they leave her they just leave her on the ground. They don't knock her out. And she's able to crawl over to him and hold him. And I was
in the TV show?
The TV show.
Right.
And I just was like, that's what got me. That was the part where I lost it. I was like, don't do this to me.
Yeah, it was a tough watch. And I want to play a longer snippet where it's Pedro talking about the character and everybody kind of reflecting on Joel, on how the death was for what's, again, this, and Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin say it, this is kind of where the Last of Us 2 starts. This is the event that kind of pushes everything forward. And I want to play this clip and then we'll come back to it.
Why it had to be episode 2.
Yeah, because we've only got 5 more.
Some of the inspiration for the second game was, how do we put the player in that state of righteousness or hate or whatever label you want to put on it? And the decision felt very clear to me, is like, we have to kill someone we really care about.
When we get to the moment where Abby does what she does, it was as hard for us to write and to shoot as it was, I think, probably for a lot of people to watch.
Joel, get up.
End it.
Joel, get up. Please.
But this story is about how we all deal with those moments, which do confront us in life. We all think, I could deal with this much stuff. And then life says, and then we find out what we can put up with.
Get up.
I mean, I knew that Joel was gonna die right from season 1, but reading it in the script, I knew that it was coming as I was reading the episode, and I was dreading getting to that bit, and I cried. Actually sobbed my little heart out. It's the first time I've ever cried from reading a piece of writing.
I have nothing but respect for the level of investment that people have in a video game or a television show or movie or book. I experience it myself, and I've flung books across the room because its impact is so profound on me and experiencing a story. And I think that if it is incredibly painful for people, that's obviously a brilliant achievement of the storytelling.
Getting to do that opposite Pedro was just an actor's dream. I felt really taken care of working with him because it is so heavy, it's so loaded.
As soon as I put the script down, I was exponentially more terrified of delivering that moment than anything in the battle.
It sort of took on a whole other life and energy just because it sort of digs the knife in a little bit deeper.
No.
Damn, I don't want to hear this whole thing.
So I know all that.
Oh my God.
So we heard from Bella Ramsey, Mark Milo, director, Pedro Pascal, Craig Mazin, Neil Druckmann, and I think Helen Deaver's in the whole thing.
You need to run your own credits for that.
It's important to, and again, we're not going to talk about what we just talked about, but how like part of me is so proud of, and such a fan of this game because, and Pedro said it was just, it's a credit. If you're upset about something, if you're sad, mad, happy, if you feel something in a creative outlet, that's great storytelling.
That's, yeah.
Right? That's what it's about.
And I feel I've had those moments, right? I'm sure almost all of us have, of just, you know, like you said, the flinging a book across the room.
Yeah.
Or like I've
Throw
had
the
to,
controller, fucking.
I've had to pause TV shows or movies when I'm just like, I need to process what just happened for just a second before I can continue on. This is crazy kind of a thing.
Great storytelling. And I think
storytelling.
That's one of the great things about what this game and show I think will eventually do, and already has done for a bunch of people. So, but again, that was all the actors kind of reflecting on Joel's death. And I think Pedro Pascal maybe hinted at it, where some of the vitriol that got thrown on Neil Druckmann when people had played the game and then realized that Joel dies fucking, you know, I don't know, 3 hours into the game when he's the protagonist for the entire time in the first game. But it was great. And I wanted people to hear that, because if we don't hear, we're never going to experience, you know, Joel Miller again. Like, I mean, sure, through flashbacks, we've seen that already, but like a goodbye to that character, like this I think needed to be heard. If we're going to be talking about this podcast and referencing Joel and Ellie and Abby, that segment needed to be heard. So I think that was really important. I do want to play something going forward.
No.
Yes, I do. And this is important.
How long is this?
It doesn't matter because we're in for it.
Can we talk about our own feelings
But
instead?
I do. Yes, we'll come to your feeling in a second.
The creators got to already torture us. Why do they get more speech?
So this is specifically where this is going. All right, then we can, that's the last one.
What do you mean where it's going? We can't give spoilers.
I think some viewers will start seeing some parallels between Abby and Ellie. Abby has lost her dad, and now inadvertently, Abby has created those same nightmares for another character This event will change all the characters we know forever from this point on. Now, this person that's capable of such violence, this impulsive character, what's going to happen to them next?
That was a great quote.
Thank you. But I already knew that. So anyway.
Which he's talking about Ellie at the end, right?
Yes, he's talking about Ellie at the end.
Because that was something that we saw a lot in that first season, right? Was just they kind of kept harping to like, she's kind of capable of some real violence.
Violent shit. Yeah.
Some real violent shit and very impulsive. And this is what I harken back to, like, even in the first episode, because there was, you know, you guys talked a little bit about how you're like, she's acting very like, you know, I'm king of the world and nothing can happen to me and all this stuff. And I was like, this is that reason. This is exactly that reason. We needed that last reminder of where Ellie starts before this.
Before where she goes.
This is the moment where you can't imagine, like, do you think Ellie could ever act like nothing in the world is ever going to happen to her?
No, I think
know what I mean? That she's invincible anymore?
No.
There's no way you
that's
can
gone.
act like
Veil,
It's gone.
veil of armor's gone.
So to me, you had to have that.
God damn it, Gump! You're a goddamn genius.
Anyhow, this was a really hard watch, and I almost thought I was like, I'm not even gonna podcast because I was so emotional after this. I had to sit with it forever.
It was cathartic in the best way. You know what I mean? Like
there's
it
good
was.
catharsis.
No,
it's
good. It's
hurtful.
like it makes you nervous. It makes you excited. It makes you sad because
they
now
pulled off that moment. I don't even know if we talked about it, but the moment where he actually does pull, like he saves Abby and pulls her up, and they come into the shot with the two of them.
We didn't talk about that specifically, but we did talk about the gate shot, which led to that.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They knew immediately that we were going to know that she's after Joel. That's Joel.
Right.
Joel's here.
They put him
this
in a
just
two-shot.
happened.
That's true. That's a good point.
And it worked so well.
Yeah, that's
I
Mark
immediately was just, that was it for me. Like my heart was just like, do.
There's a great, it was after one of the Game of Thrones, I think it might have been the season before the last season. And they're talking about the Money Train one when fucking Daenerys was on one of the dragons and the brother, the one with no hand, I can't remind me of his name.
What?
Jamie is also on the field. Jamie, and so the creator said this is the first time that we've had two principal characters
Daenerys
who everybody
and
both likes,
Yeah.
and one of them is going to die. They didn't, spoiler alert, but you thought they were, and they probably
face off. And
yeah.
you're like, who do you root for?
And so,
I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. And so this wasn't as much that because we didn't know that much about Abby, but it will be. I think
that's what Chris hopes.
It fucking will be. Like it just will. But that was a great two-shot as well. But then Mark Mylod, I don't want to let that guy go. He did a lot of Succession. If you don't know Succession,
The director.
the director. I apologize. Yes, director Mark Mylod. He directed a lot and it was a showrunner for Succession, another HBO Emmy Award winner. He's done a shit ton of HBO stuff. And I think he's their big gun. He brings them in when they know they have a big project, and this one clearly was. And
this moment specifically, which to me is almost crazy that they didn't have one of the creators direct it. But they brought in this guy.
True.
And he did great.
How does Craig Mazin not direct this?
Yeah, that was
right?
big. Yeah, exactly. I was like, how are you trusting this episode
Yeah.
with somebody else?
Yeah.
But maybe, as writing it, maybe that was enough. Like he said, it was just as much torture as it feels for you guys watching it. It's them doing it. They're going through the same amount of torture.
Pressure, you know. But no, it's funny. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this for the rest of the series. It's a huge point of driving Ellie going forward, right? Not to overstate the obvious.
Like you said, it's the beginning of the story, basically.
It really is.
This is it.
When I think of the game, and I don't want to belabor this too much, I think of Joel dying in the game beginning. And that's not how it happens. Joel doesn't die for a few hours before you play.
Just like we got to see. We got an episode with him, a full one. And I mean, they already kind of, I guess they said it in the podcast. But I mean, if you've watched the trailer for this TV show, then you know that you saw like some other scenes with him. So like they kind of, he's not going to fully be gone. He's going to come back, but it just might not be in the way we'd like him to be there.
Right. That's why we want to give him the goodbye.
You
take the moment, give. And I honestly think listening to Pedro talk about his love of creative literature and outlets, that's why people love him. Like him saying that
I
he's
was
like,
saying that. I was like, he's
one of us.
He is.
You know?
Like when people talk about the craze behind Pedro, which, you know, it will eventually fall off because it does that for every actor.
Mm-hmm.
But I was saying that, I'm like, it's, if you hear him in normal interviews, like he comes off as such a human being.
Yeah.
He doesn't come off as some elitist who's not attached, and you know what I mean? He has anxiety and he talks about it and he has these emotions that he's, you know what I mean? It's just, he seems like such a treasure. Like,
and I think that's part of why this hits so hard, is because you're not just losing Joel, but you're also losing Pedro.
yeah.
Right. So there's that combination.
In the podcast, they run that joke up pretty early on in the episode that they're just like, there were people on the internet who were saying Pedro is too big, that HBO will not let us do this. Yeah.
Interesting.
And they were like, which they just were like, nope. It's like it had to happen because, again, this is the beginning of the story.
Right. It's the
beginning of the story.
Yeah.
I think we should run up our last spoiler flag.
Another spoiler flag. I love it.
And then we will talk about what we expect as game players for the future. But again, like I said, guys, if you have not played the game, this might be the end of the episode for you. If you haven't played the game, then like stick around and we'll talk about what our expectations are moving forward. You know what I mean?
What should we do?
Stick around.
I've never done 2 of these. I'm really excited.
Oh, how excited are you?
I'm really excited.
I love it. Yeah, no. So as a game players, right? Like, we know that this is we're gonna see a new Ellie.
Yeah.
The trailer for the next episode already looks like we're gonna have the grief moment, which is good. But the biggest change I saw was the Dina thing. So
yes,
Dina,
you called that in the episode too, though.
I did. I was like, Dina. I was like, why would they put Dina with Joel? And I kept being like, you know what? I actually do feel like Tommy had enough, backstory, like with Joel. He has enough already created in the show that he has a motivation if they are going to follow the game and have him eventually go after Joel. I feel like he didn't need to be there. Don't get me wrong. It was very touching that he was there when this happens in the game. But part of me was like, you know what? You're right. I don't know if you actually need it. I think he might be fine to go on his own and we'll believe it. We'll totally believe
Once
it.
word get back that his brother's dead because we see it. That's it. That's his motivation, right?
And Dina, bringing Dina into it helps it a lot because what we saw in the trailer, she's like, I know everyone's names. Like, I know all of their names.
The girl with the braid.
Yeah, and they have already right? You kind of said it leading up to this. It's like Dina comes off as smart, especially in this episode. She's like level-headed. She's like talking about this is, we're not going to make it back to Jackson in time. Like, we're going to die out here. You know what I mean? Like, she's kind of put together that, you know what I mean? And so going into this, we got to see as soon as she walked in, she was looking at backpacks. She saw Wolf.
The patch. It was cool. It was good. It was good. It was real good.
There was some moments there, and she apparently clocked their names when Abby decided to give them all out. You know what I mean? So,
and she drew the patch. In the trailer we get for next episode, she actually drew the WLF patch.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So she's observant. She's going to be the one that's going to feed us the info that's going to launch us into actually, all right, let's go take off.
Which is going to be great.
And I think it is a good choice. I think it was always kind of in the game when like Dina decides to go with her. It is like, a supportive, very fresh relationship girlfriend thing.
Yeah, but they were together at that point though.
Yeah, but I kept being like, dude, there's no, like, Dina's really putting up with some shit here. You know what I mean? Like, she just started dating this girl. Like, like,
Another fish in the sea, man.
Yeah.
I'm not following to Seattle.
I was kind of like, okay, and so I feel like this show is almost doing a better job of giving that influence.
I think so
Dina.
too. I love it.
And maybe even Jesse, like just the fact that he's been around a little more. He jumped into action so quickly about Joel being gone since he was paired up with Ellie when they found out that he was missing. And yes, I know Dina's there too, and he cares about her, so that might have been part of it. Do you think they're gonna stick with the storyline of Dina being pregnant?
Oh man. That's a great question. I don't know. I think it would happen. Oh, I don't know.
I think they will have her be pregnant. My next question: they haven't announced that Mel's pregnant,
and she's not showing either. By the way, she had that jacket.
We can't even tell if they're in a relationship. If Owen and Mel are, they seem to have. It seems like Owen is still very much with Abby.
Yeah, which honestly might work because that flashback they have when they're at SeaWorld and whatever the fuck it is in the water. If they just played that part and not just made it a flashback, But I don't know. I liked that when Abby lost Mel and Owen and the dog.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, spoiler alert, unfortunately, the sad part that I didn't want to talk about it.
The dog.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. We're talking about dogs dying tonight. Not tonight.
Well, I was just gonna say that was our little ode to the dogs, right? Like in this episode, we got to see
That's true.
them have dogs, and I was like, man, maybe they're not gonna give Wolf any dogs then.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because wolves, yeah.
Because then they're the enemies if we start being Ellie and having to go after them, and we don't want to see Ellie. We don't want to see any dogs die. No
Right.
dogs are dying.
No dogs.
Let's not do that.
But so that would be interesting. I honestly think that just going back to her group as a whole, not to kind of avoid your question, but kind of expand on it, like you're gonna feel bad, like when everything starts happening, when Abby starts killing these people because they maybe didn't. Like they didn't want to do that. They didn't have the same passion as Abby had. Like Nora, we know
Yeah.
Nora gets it in this season. We know
Because
it.
we can, if any, you've seen the trailers at all, you're picking up on, oh, this part is the Nora part with
Yeah.
the spores, which I was a little worried about us mentioning spores in the other episode. I was like, is that a spoiler?
They've
But
talked about it up and down. Mazin and Druckmann have already
a
talked
little
about it.
bit, yeah, it's true. But,
But, like-
some people don't follow that stuff.
So like when she killed, obviously I don't know what the dudes whose face cut, but people are gonna be upset when Mel dies, Mel dies, and Owen.
Yeah.
Like those people they're going to be upset. And so it's weird that we have this group. And I think that saying, when you go for revenge, dig two graves. But in this case, because if you play the game, Jesse dies. You know what I mean? Jesse dies helping fucking Ellie. And so it's like there's that. And then Abby loses all of her friends. I just think that we're in for such a Greek tragedy in this instance. It's you have that look on your face like you're going to say something.
No, I'm with you. I am absolutely agreeing with you right now. And then when we get, my thing is like with Mel not being pregnant, that was such a huge, and man, you know what? That's probably what it is.
A time jump, maybe?
Oh God, I just put it together. Okay. Anyways, it's a big deal in the game that Mel is pregnant because like Ellie's going to kill her. Ellie kills her and then sees that she's pregnant because Owen says it as Owen's dying or something. Like he's like, she's, or he tries to stop her and stuff. He says at some point she's pregnant. And then Ellie goes over and opens up her jacket and sees her belly. And that's the connection between Dina being pregnant and Ellie just killed a pregnant woman.
Oh.
And so there's like a moment there that's when it becomes really, really real for Ellie. And they basically decide at that point when they get back to the theater that they're done.
They don't go after Abby.
Because
like they
it's
call
too
it.
much.
Yeah. And then of course what
much.
happens?
And Abby shows up.
Yep.
But it was Manny's the guy that's
the cut dude.
I mean, he's not the cut dude in the game, but he's got cut in this. He's the substitute for that.
Manny was in the game.
Yes, Manny was in the game, but he's not the one who got cut on the face.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that patrols with Abby. When you first start playing as Abby, they go around and they meet Isaac and then they jump in the car and they go on.
Yeah, and they're talking about it. Tommy kills Manny in the game. He snipes him, blows his face off.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep. That is the point.
And that's when you have to avoid getting shot by Tommy at playing as Abby.
Yeah.
Which again is fucking this game.
I know. But here's the thing. I just realized why they can't have Mel be pregnant.
Is there a time jump?
And it's because Ellie kills her. And we're in a TV show. Are you going to have Ellie, our main, chick,
That's true.
kill a pregnant woman on TV?
Can you imagine that shit? Fuck.
That's the thing. So that's why they haven't done it.
HBO was like, fuck no.
That's yeah. I mean, don't get
Time
me wrong.
Warner.
They still could do it, and the only way I could see them pull it off, well, they have to decide to make that choice, which is a choice.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing they probably are not going to. But you could technically look the time between now to when they decide to go to Seattle. There is at least I think a month or something in between there. It's close to that. It's somewhere around there, at least a couple of weeks or something, because Ellie has to heal, right?
Yeah,
Like that's the
yeah.
whole thing. And before she sets off, and so is that tiny little timeline where, you could have Abby break up with Owen or whatever because of maybe how this whole situation went.
They don't even know if they're together.
I know.
We don't know. It looks like
they are though.
Yeah.
But it definitely doesn't look like he's with Mel. It's interesting.
Yeah, Mel feels like, who the fuck is this? Well, in case you didn't
But
know, they're
she's-
together and knocked up. Like,
But funny enough, she's like the most relatable one right now. You're all like, dude, at least she's the most humanity, I would say,
Yeah.
out of the group. Like, you're like, oh my God, like she knows this is fucked up.
maybe that's the catch. Maybe that's the play. Instead of her being pregnant, her being just the most human and
Right.
trying to give the most compassion out of everybody. It's like, hey, we're still going to kill you.
That's a good point because I
know?
do think she actually is on team, we should kill the girl who just witnessed this when you're in the game. She has a lot of humanity throughout the game, Mel does, but I think in that moment she actually disagrees with like Owen is kind of trying to stop people from killing Ellie.
Yeah.
And I think she actually says, no, I think we need to take her out.
Didn't they say that? I mean, I'm of that too, by the way. Like, killing any of your survivors. It sucks.
They changed all that in this because they kind of, again, I think they have to make us like this group.
Yeah. And they do a good job of that. But you're right.
It.
I think in Game of Thrones they did it too, where it's like you have to wipe out a family lineage. Otherwise, some fucking kid removed.
The revenge, right?
Exactly.
They're going to come
30
for you.
years. Yeah. Got to do it.
I love it. So yeah, those are some of the moments I'm kind of interested for. Do you think we'll see a lot of crazy hate on the internet over this now again?
No, I don't. It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. Yeah. I think that people that watch TV, I think, are a little more forgiving than gamers because when we play this game, you've been with Joel for the whole first game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
You play as him almost the whole first game up until winter or whatever.
So like there's a connection established there where if you're watching the TV show, it's okay. This isn't nowhere near the fucking we keep talking about it. The I can't think of his name now. What's the Glenn situation? This is nowhere near a Glenn situation, I don't think. It's not nearly as violent. It's not nearly as bad. Glenn was with Walking Dead for, I think, 5 seasons before this happened. So, you know what I mean? There was a whole lot more time invested in Glenn. And he was more like Ellie than Joel. You know, Joel was kind of a scoundrel. Ellie, if Ellie were to get her fucking mowed down, I think it would be different.
Fair. Glenn was like the golden child.
Exactly, right? Him and Maggie were like hope, you know? So... But I don't think the vitriol will be nearly as bad as we saw in the video games. People might be like, well, yeah, it's sad. It sucks. But I mean, if people have seen Game of Thrones.
We'll see.
If you've seen it, what do you think it's bad?
we did make it through all of the, viewers of this have made it through the first season. And that had some harsh times, like the kid getting killed and stuff.
That's true. That was way worse.
That was rough.
Well,
it's not worse.
It's not way worse. Yeah. That was rough too. But people have also seen The Red Wedding. You know what I mean? People have seen shows.
You're talking about, maybe it's the same audience, but it could be different audiences. It might be the same audience.
It might not be, but assuming that it is, but also assuming like the level of like gravity, because I don't know. I don't think it's be that bad.
Okay.
Nowhere near. Next episode, episode 3. So we got a little bit of trailer.
But again, it was just literally like.
It's like 60 seconds of just fucking.
It's like the morning part, which I forgot about that part of the game where you just go into his house. Oh, I forgot until they got to it again here, and I was like, don't.
It'll be interesting how long they take on there because again, it's a 7-episode series. You know what I mean? Next episode there'll be 5 left.
And they didn't show us much, like you said. It's Dina's like, I know their names and stuff and where they're from or something like that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Honestly, in my mind, I think she has to get ready. I think she has to leave for Seattle next episode.
This.
Right? She has 100%. To go to Seattle. Yeah.
And do you think they'll just jump over to Seattle? They got it, right? We don't need to see any in between. There's nothing to show.
Unless there's like
they
morning and
jump
like,
too, yeah.
If her and Dina go and Dina maybe like jokes or tries to like, I don't want to say joke, but like lighten the moment, Ellie shuts it down. Like the Ellie that we're going to get is the Ellie that you reference where it's like, hey, all the fucking joking is done now.
Yeah.
It's just fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think Tommy is going to go after him?
I think Tommy goes after him. It'll be interesting to see where they put that because Tommy shows up randomly again when he shoots.
He in the game, he takes off first. He takes off first and leaves a note behind. And so his wife ends up going in because Ellie's getting ready to take off with Dina. And they're like I think it might be his house. And they're like kind of grabbing their stuff to get going. And they're planning to steal some horses and some ammo and get out of there, right?
Horse thievery.
Yeah, exactly. But the wife of Tommy shows up in their house, Maria. She's in the house already, or she comes up to the house and then she has a note and it's from Tommy telling her that they took off, kind of a thing.
That plays almost perfectly.
And exactly. So it can work the same exact way in my opinion, basically. And then, Maria actually gives them permission to go at that point and lets them go with some horses.
Like gives him her blessing?
Yeah. And then she says, bring my stupid husband back home, kind of a thing.
That plays perfectly. That kind of plays out exactly how I think episode 3 would play out.
I think it could. That's my thought too, is I think it still could go that way.
I think we get a down episode.
Jesse is the one who shows up like after them all. You know what I mean? Like later.
Who shows up in Seattle?
And saves like her ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that's when Dina's already revealed she's pregnant because she can't be with Ellie anymore, like to help get her back, you know?
That's got to be later.
That is later.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That's episode 3, I think.
Yeah, copy.
Yeah.
We got to run into wolves at least.
Oh, that's my
right?
thing, dude. The wolves, and not just the Seraphites too.
They can't come. I think they got to introduce
Not tomorrow.
one
Or not
first.
tomorrow. Not
yeah,
next week.
Yeah. I think wolves first.
Have to be, because that's where they're there, right?
Yeah, because then that's the whole thing. The Seraphites are the wolves, you know.
They may run into the wolves, or I'm sorry, Ellie may run into the Seraphites on the way to find the wolves because Seattle is so, forest dense.
Good.
Like, is in passing, like, hey, we ran into these things and we find out later. I mean, it'd be great layered storytelling if we were, who the fuck are these people now? And then we find out through episode 4 that, oh, that's the wolves.
I think it's too much to intro.
It's a lot to intro. But I mean, in the end, how do you fit, at what part of, do you fit this game in 7 episodes?
I mean, yeah, that's fair. But the game itself also does just introduce the wolves first for a little bit, and then the Seraphites show up. So
it makes sense that we'd also find out who the fuck the wolves are. Like, we catch Abby going to the compound, the baseball stadium. We see her playing with the dogs. We see the militarization.
now you're in the whole second half, which you think is going to be the next season.
Maybe. Well, you think it's going to be next season too? You think it's going to cut? All right, well,
Yeah.
we'll
I'm with you.
there's just a lot after that part of it. But anyway, I mean, as far as this episode goes, I think that they nailed it. I think that the send-off to Pedro is fantastic. I think the introduction to Abby's character and her motivations were perfect. You know what I mean? I mean,
You do?
I do. I absolutely do. And I think that also gives great motivation to Ellie. I mean, really, story takes off from here.
I think they did a really good job with what they could, is kind of my feeling. Like, I do. I think the moment landed for me, I cried. You know what I mean? Like, it got me, good job. Like I said, I think I kind of wish that the speech hadn't been the speech sort of a thing, but I also kind of understand it and I don't know how you could have done it without it sort of a thing at this point, because I think they had to set it up that way. Like I said, they couldn't do it the game way where we just don't know until, the second half of the game, basically.
Is this the best episode of the Last of Us series thus far, going back from season 1 and 2?
I don't know. No, it's too emotional right now. It's too raw.
Okay, we'll come back. We'll rate it at the end of the year. I
think we should rate it at the end of the year. It would be hard. I'd be hard pressed to say that's the best.
And it's still brand new, right?
It was
still
really,
very raw.
yeah. Yeah, that part, I'm just saying as far as the game goes, like they did a really good job with it. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. That's how I feel about it.
Well, we don't want to belabor it too long. I think we said everything we want to say about this episode. Again, there is a podcast and a behind the episode that we kind of cite in this. If you're interested, watch those. The podcast is fantastic.
Yeah. It's great. It's really good. And especially from the game, players, it's like, you love hearing from Troy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, anyway, for Chris
and Jessica,
we're out.
Deep breath.